Welcome to the Referrals Podcast, the show designed to help everyone from the solopreneur to the Fortune 500 company win the referral game. If you want to build a company with an army of ambassadors and raving fans who speak highly of you and refer you willingly, you are in the right place. And now, here is your host, Michael J. Maher.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Referrals Podcast. Let me ask you a question. Are you happy? Oh, my God. Hello. I thought this was Referrals Podcast. I thought we were going to talk about referrals. Well, here's the thing. If you do a lot of business and you get a lot of referrals, but you're not happy, is it a good thing? The answer is no. If you have to do things that don't make you happy to help people who don't make you happy and you don't want to do what you're doing, why are we doing all this, right? Why are we trying to get referrals? Why, in my opinion, is referrals a better way to get business than other ways? Because it makes people happy. There's a lot of methods out there to get business, to be an entrepreneur, to get sales, to be a realtor or lender that don't make people happy, like interrupting them, disrupting them, like annoying them until they buy from you. Or are you in this to be happy? Like, are you happy? And what a great question for 2020. We just had Referral Mastery Summit and we had best year ever. That was our theme of referral, best year ever. And what was amazing to me was we had all these panelists on, we had all these speakers, these entrepreneurs doing crazy, awesome numbers. But what I kept hearing was this theme of happiness. Like they're not just doing business. They're having freaking fun. They're doing business with a smile on their face, and it's not a grind. They're not hustling. They're not begging. You know what they're doing? They're having fun. They're doing what they love, and they're being happy. So I have to tell you, I'm really excited about our guest today. But before I bring him on, I'm going to give a shout out to Cindy. Cindy just gave us a 5-star iTunes review. And the first question that I have from this is, have you given a 5-star iTunes review? You don't have to give us a 5-star. I would really like to know why it's less than 5-star, if it's less than 5-star. But give us an iTunes review when you have a chance. People read them. They read the most current first. So make sure you when you put it on, put your information on there because people will find you and refer you. This is what Cindy said. Michael is the man. Oh, you know what? My engineer puts these together, but I'm just going to make sure that I read this very slowly. Michael is the man. Thank you, Cindy. No, I'm kidding. That's not it. Michael is the man. He has a lot of great advice and he's motivating. Regardless of what you do for a living, there is something for you in Referrals Podcast, and it will help. It's a really fun and helpful podcast to listen to. I listen to it every week. Thank you, Cindy. And thanks to Cindy and other listeners and viewers like her, we are trending in Belgium, of all people, of all places. We did trend in USA as well, but we're like number 4 in Belgium. Like, I feel like I should have like a Belgian flag and like, yay, but it's one of those where, who's so happy about that? My wife, Sherry, her family is from Belgium, of all places, right? So it's like, hey, we're trending in Belgium. That's something we can hang our hat on. But I want to tell you something else we can hang our hat on is we have phenomenal guests. We have phenomenal guests like Jason Javer. This guy is going to blow you away. This guy is going to make you think a little bit differently. He's not going to change your mind 180 degrees, but he might change your mind a 1-degree tweak. Jason, welcome to Referrals Podcast. Welcome, brother.
Thanks for having me on, Michael. I'm pumped. Love the energy.
Charlotte's finest, man. I love having you on. And so I got to read this guy's bio. Wait until you hear about this guy. A New York native, Jason Javer graduated from the Ross School of Business at the University of Michigan. Go Wolverines. It's Navy and maize, right? Don't call it yellow.
Exactly. Yeah, not yellow, maize. Yep.
And his degree is in finance. After working for a private equity company that invested in real estate in the Chicago area, Jason felt he had the foundation he needed for success in real estate investment and development. Additionally, his experience as a financial analyst allowed him to take the leap into real estate entrepreneurship 6 years ago. As a member of the thriving, and I'll tell you right now, it is thriving, Charlotte community, Jason enjoys his time at the office and out on the golf course with friends. And he just built a new home, which I hope he talks about that a little bit. And at 32 years young, not 32 years old, he's 32 years young, Jason leads a team of 8 that drives $20 million in revenue. His develop and construction firm has 60 units currently in production, and he is our guest today on Referrals Podcast. That's a lot for 32, man.
I appreciate it. Thank you. It's been quite a journey for sure.
So I have to tell you that you have a finance background. Congratulations on the Ross School of Business deal, dude. I mean, that's an awesome school. And did you? I'm totally going off script. Sorry.
Let's do it. I love it. Let's go.
I'm genuinely curious. So did when you were at the Ross School, did they do it all in groups or was it more individualized? Like I had known that they went to a team approach for a while. And they've kind of been in and out of that.
It was a little bit of a balance based on the class. So if it was like a little bit of a more finance type class, especially like a beginner level finance, it was more like textbook class, lecture hall type thing. Yeah. But then as you kind of got a little bit more in the school, it was definitely a little bit more focused on group projects, teamwork, and, putting things together as a group, which I guess, they wanted to prepare you a little bit more for what the real world is versus just learning straight from a textbook.
100%. And for my MBA, they used kind of some of the Ross School and Harvard and some of that to form the MBA program at Baker University. And it was all team. It was almost all team. We literally started in a team from class 1, and then we had a team throughout and at times, I know I got lucky with my group, but teams had people coming in and out. It was just like, man, I would like the 50-50 mix would have been like perfect, because sometimes we felt like we were carrying other people, and then other times it just I know there were a lot of teams that had a lot of struggles, but I was just curious about that. And then
definitely
you're in finance, so I have to tell you that typically financial analysts don't become entrepreneurs. They typically it's just a different personality type. So how did you get started in entrepreneurship?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. As you said, like my personality is probably a little bit more like analytical, make sure everything's in the right place. But, growing up, my dad was an entrepreneur. So I think I always saw like that, the flexibility that he had. And then as I got into my corporate jobs, like the private equity firm that I worked at, I just felt like I hit a ceiling and I wanted more. And I felt like I could do more. I felt like as an analyst, I looked at the principles of the company and said like, I can do what they're doing. I felt like I really immersed myself in the material and was able to quickly pick up on the core principles of, in that sense, the investing and the commercial real estate that company was working on. But for me, it was like, I felt like I needed more and I wasn't going to be happy unless I kind of stretched myself out there a little bit further.
How would you define what your business does? Like you're an entrepreneur, you have I don't even want to call it a small business. You have a business, right? So what's the solution that your business provides?
Yeah. So our business, we focus on what's called infill development. So pretty much all of our projects are within a few miles from what they call uptown Charlotte here, basically like the core center city. And basically over the last several years, there's been a big shift in Charlotte toward these more urban neighborhoods. And what we do is we specialize in finding these opportunities, understanding the zoning, and providing a price point of $400,000 to $700,000 that, fits well for these millennials that are maybe dual income, no kids. They want to live near where they work, but not exactly like in uptown. So it's just outside, but near the transportation centers. And we've been, like you mentioned, very fortunate that Charlotte's just been a booming city, and we've been able to kind of take advantage of the growing demand in these neighborhoods.
Are they, is this all renovation or is it empty lots, infill that you build from scratch?
Yeah, everything that we do currently is new construction, build from scratch. So we'd maybe, we find a piece of property and we'll do anywhere from maybe 2 houses up to 15 units on a piece of property, and understanding like zoning and what people want. So the size and the features, and, trying to kind of put that all together. And fortunately right now in the market, there's certainly low supply and high demand. And we're just trying to continue to keep up with demand right now, which is a good place to be. We're very fortunate.
Yeah, you're finding diamonds, diamonds in the rough. It's that's amazing. I could only guess. Is it tough to find the deals? Is it tough to find an empty lot in what I would consider like a midtown, right?
Yeah. Some of what we do is like tear downs.
Okay.
Some of it's tear downs, but you're spot on. What I really focus on day to day, and this kind of ties in, I think, with my financial analyst background, is kind of finding opportunities, understanding the numbers, understanding like the overall project as well, and making sure that I'm putting the team in the right position to succeed. So really a lot of what I work on from day to day is going to be, how do we find these opportunities? What levers are we pulling to make sure that, we're getting enough of these opportunities, looking at enough of them to pick the right one. So, as you talk about like referrals, like that's a big piece of our business, is the branding, the referral side. People work with us. They see that we're doing business, or they've done transactions with us, or they know people that have done transactions with us. We want to make that an easy business for not only the people that are bringing us the opportunities, but also obviously, our end buyers as well.
So I'm going to ask you a question on that. So how, like I said, we're like we had these scripted questions that we both discussed before in pre-show, and then now all I've done is basically cross all those out and go over here.
It's like,
sorry about that.
No,
but I'm genuinely interested. I'm genuinely. So I'm going to talk about the referrals that you. So do you have? Are these people that are hired by you? Are these people who live in the area? Are these people who are like? When I was running my business in Kansas City, I had FSBO finders. I literally had friends of mine who would find for sale by owners, and they would call me about them. And then we'd approach, instead of trying to find the for sale by owners, is it something like that, or who are these people that are referring you? I love
it's morphed into that. I think in my early days, like you mentioned, I was probably one of those FSBO finders, like looking for opportunities, doing the thing, sending the letters, making the calls myself. Now, there's a couple people that in particular that I've just built relationships with. And really my approach with all of the, as you mentioned, like FSBO, for sale by owner, people that are bringing wholesalers, basically, my approach is I just treat them with honesty and respect. So they bring me an opportunity, and they understand that I'm not going to sit here and steal the deal. I'm looking for a win-win, but I'm also, since I understand zoning and costs, I'm able to help guide them through what we can offer. And so I'm not going to sit here and they tell me about an opportunity and then go behind their back. They understand that, hey, like Jason with Vista Homes, he's doing a lot of stuff. He's set this up where he's going to help me evaluate these opportunities, because it's hard for them. They don't know the numbers or what's allowable through density. So I'm able to kind of bridge that gap and be somewhat of, I look at it a little bit of somewhat as a mentor too, and help them understand and learn. And then at the same time they're, bringing me opportunities. So it becomes a win-win. And that's kind of been a big foundation of our business over the last couple of years.
It is a win-win. What I love about that is that, call them wholesalers or deal finders or whatever you want to, is that the win for them, they don't want to take this to the finish line, right? They're looking for the deal. They're looking to make a little bit of cash short-term right now. They get the instant gratification kick. You are much more analytical. You're okay with delayed gratification, and you take this you are using your strength, which is taking this thing to the finish line. God bless you, because we need people like you who, otherwise you have these wholesalers selling to wholesalers, and each one of them are making like 5,000, but the home never becomes lived in. It's just a project to people. But in your case, it becomes a home. It's much more the American feel-good story. What you're doing is renovating or rebuilding, in most cases, a home for someone. And, there's families living in your final projects, and they're loving it, and they have a dog, and they have, kids now, and they're loving it. So I love that. Thanks for doing that. And that's one of the hardest jobs I think there is out there. We've done that. We've done several projects like that in Midtown Kansas City, where, it was dilapidated, and we took it to the final route and sold it or rented it. And, those neighborhoods are a lot nicer.
Yeah. Right? I mean, it's tight inventory. It's very competitive. So, you do have to kind of be on your game to find the opportunity and then also be able to execute, to your point.
So that leads us to happiness, right? So
Yeah.
tell us about your happiness formula. What is the happiness formula? How does all this make you happy? Can entrepreneurs really be happy? Seriously?
I think so. I think my approach to it is like, you're always investing in your happiness for me. And that's how I look at it. And for me, I feel like I have a lot of self-awareness and understanding what makes me happy and the things that aren't. And for me, it's about kind of financial security. I can get, stressed very easily. Maybe it's like that quantitative financial analyst background, that I'm the entrepreneur that wants things to feel secure, but at the same time, like wants to grow and wants to feel uneasy at times, because that is growth. So for me, I think happiness is, it's going to be a matter of one's perspective, as is success. And it's going to be what works for you. So for me, it's going to be about financial security, but I've interviewed a lot of people that, they like the fancy things that gets them going, that makes them motivated. But I think for me, my message that I like to send is like, understand what it is that makes you happy. And it's like a muscle. You have to keep investing in it and be true to yourself. Don't worry about what other people think. Don't worry about, if you're not driving the fanciest car or have the nicest clothes, that, Joe isn't going to think you're successful. It's much more about how do you kind of, create your life, and how do you kind of continue to see improvement. And that's kind of what I've been able to do. I feel like, is to see improvement year over year, but I still have a long way to go as well.
And I'm here with Jason Javer. He has the Charlotte Entrepreneurship Podcast. Yes?
Yes.
It's for entrepreneurs in Charlotte, North Carolina. And you are delivering content all the time on helping that very diverse one. Charlotte is an amazing city. And so tell me about your podcast real quick. And then I want to get back to the happiness formula, right?
Yeah, definitely. The podcast, the vision of it is to kind of be able to spread my message, help small businesses interact as well and network, and try to tell a story, but also have my spin on it. So, some people are going to be a little bit more established businesses than others. I hope to continue to provide guidance. I feel like one of the things that small business owners lack a little bit is the ability to work on their business versus in their business. Maybe they have a craft, and that, so hopefully maybe trying to get them to push to, how do I work on my business? How do I experience growth? How do I kind of delegate things so that I can kind of get further along on that, happiness and success path? So those are some of the visions of it. And, we're kind of just getting started with it a little bit, but it's been really an awesome experience. I feel like I'm getting a ton out of it too. Just like talking to like-minded people and hearing like, oh yeah, like that's really similar to, our path. But then there's also things that they care more about than I do, or just, so there's like the core things that are similar, but then there's the things that make everyone different. I think that's like the beautiful thing, is that there's not like one way you have to do it, but there are some core principles that seem to come up in every episode as well.
Yeah. Isn't that cool? That's the same thing with Referrals Podcast. Is I've been better. I came kicking and screaming to the podcast game. I did not want to do this. I didn't want to be locked in. I had talked to Dave Ramsey probably 7-8 years ago, and he was telling me about some days he felt like he was chained to the radio show,
Yeah.
And then he'd turn it up, he'd turn it on a notch, and then he would, he's Dave Ramsey. He delivers the goods. But I kind of understood, it's like, man, he has to be on every day live. Like it's got to be him, and after learning more about the podcast game and then meeting people like you and the people that I've met through it, it's been, I can't even imagine it any other way. I love doing it, and I enjoy the heck out of it. And, so
it's really like a jolt of energy too, like talking to like-minded people. Like I kind of came in here, it's a Friday afternoon, a little bit like tired, ready for the weekend. Oh, maybe I need to grab a coffee, but just kind of in the first few minutes of, catching up with you, I felt like, all right, this is like why I'm doing this. Like you remember a little bit of like why you're here and why why it's enjoyable.
Especially in today's time, because we don't have the highly interactive world that we used to have. Now it's we do kind of sometimes get into our house or into our, our space and forget about the world that's out there. And then boom, you've got the podcast. I see you, you see me, I see into your space a little bit, you see into my space a little bit. And it's energizing and very, 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 very cool. So, if you're an entrepreneur in Charlotte, I mean, number one, you got to be listening to this guy's podcast. Number two is you need to set a goal to be on his podcast. Like that needs to be your goal is, eventually you're going to be so good at entrepreneurship that you get to be on Jason Javer's show and reach out to him. How does somebody reach out to you if they have somebody that would be on the show or could be a good candidate?
Yeah, you can find me on social media and, on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and then also the Charlotte Entrepreneur Podcast, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter as well. And yeah, to your point, we're looking for all different types of business owners too. You don't have to have been in business for many years and be doing millions and millions in revenue. Just anyone that, if you're looking for advice, looking to get on, maybe you're hitting a roadblock, like that's kind of the vision of it as well. It's like we want to have all different types of people and not just be, focusing on, the uber successful by any means.
Yeah, everything from startup to multi-millions, right? Billion dollar companies. I love that. And so that kind of leads. So, you're talking to successful people and that kind of thing. How do you, Jason Javer, right? Javer, if you're finding him on social media, I could already see the question that people were asking from that last part was just like, all right, what, I want to get in touch with him on social media. How do his last name is Javer. Do not put an I in there. And it is Javer. So Jason Javer. And so how does Jason Javer define success?
Yeah, I think it kind of goes to that happiness mantra. I think, in my high school yearbook, my quote was success is a matter of one's perspective. And I still feel like that's true today in terms of, create your life. Don't worry about everyone else because, you need to think for yourself. And I think that's like one of the things that I've done a pretty good job at is I've crafted the life that I want and I understand like where I'm going and what I need to do to get to those places. But it might be different for everybody, or you may not want to run a business, but you might want to be really happy, working somewhere, but just kind of find that path, find that success, find that happiness, and don't worry too much about, everything else that's around you. And that's kind of what I try to focus on and try to stay grounded.
So I love that. And how do so what is the foundation of your company? Like what are the values of your company?
I think so from the people we work with to find opportunities, it's definitely going to be like honesty, integrity. You're coming to us because that we're going to treat you fairly. We're going to be able to add value and, help you throughout the process. And then of course, like no business, I think it's just extremely important for businesses, to have happy customers. So really the way I look at it is how do I put my team in the best position to be the most successful to provide happy customers? So are we doing the right products? Do we have the right volume of projects? Are my project managers in the right place? Is my head of construction able to manage everything? So, it really becomes about kind of creating the whole process to, eventually lead to really happy customers, which hopefully leads to many referrals down the line as well. And I feel like we've created a strong brand of followers and people that are happy with our products and with our homes and with the experience that they're getting.
Yeah, I love that. And so we've talked about success and we've talked about like the foundation that you've built your business on. Like, talk about a failure that you've had, right? I'm guessing you failed at least once in your life, right?
Definitely. So the biggest failure and setback that I had was, so when I moved from Chicago to Charlotte, I wanted to start my real estate business full time. So I immediately kind of jumped in, tried to, look for property and really just felt like I could do it. And I was young. I was 23, 24 years old. And I just didn't have like the money saved up. I didn't have the resources that I needed to do that. And it was really hard because it was a setback. So then I got a financial analyst position at a company called Electrolux. They sell appliances and really just kind of kept working on the business nights and weekends. But it, when it initially, that setback happened, I was like really depressed and I was like, what did I do? I left this really good job in Chicago and what was I thinking kind of moment? Like everyone around me is doing so well. And now I'm, stuck. And I started out making $15 an hour. Eventually they hired me full time. But, I think that's a big thing. You mentioned school. Like school doesn't necessarily prepare you for failure. Not like this, at least, where I really felt like, what did I do? And I was really hard on myself at the time. But, that failure has made me such a stronger person because I really just kept with it nights and weekends for, several years. I pretty much, was putting in 80 to 100 hours a week because I basically, I was working 2 jobs basically. And I was just trying to save up as much money as I could because I felt like eventually I'd have enough money saved up where I could make that leap back to the full-time, the goal. And I just remember throughout the whole process, even when it was our first deal back then, we weren't doing new construction. It was like a small condo renovation. I remember buying the property off market and I was like, wow, this stuff really works. We probably made 5-10 grand on it, but it was that was a big step. And then it was just little step after little step and then continuing to, save money, reinvest. I think that's a huge formula to the success and the happiness is just making sure you understand both sides of the equation.
Yeah. You didn't lose $1 million on your first deal. That was good.
No.
And start small, I think, is a lesson for all of us right there. And so what made you move from Chicago to Charlotte?
Yeah, so the company in Chicago, we had local partners down in Charlotte. I had a couple friends that lived down here, and I didn't have any real ties to Chicago. I was from the Northeast, school in the Midwest, had some friends in Chicago, but I just came down to visit Charlotte, and I loved the smaller city. I loved the climate. I was young, naive, had irrational confidence, so that helped. I wasn't tied down by anything.
I could go anywhere.
Yeah, I could go anywhere, do anything, until you can't. But then you pick yourself back up and try to figure it out. So, I don't know what it was. I had an aha moment when I came down to Charlotte the first time on the company trip to visit local partners. It was wow, I'm driving around and there's not traffic. It's March and it's 60, 70 degrees, and I just.
Low humidity.
I just kind of saw myself there and just kind of went for it.
Yep. And so the failure was you came in, you thought you were going to do the exact same thing you could from Chicago. You just didn't have the same resources and you didn't have the knowledge. And then it's you kind of had to swallow a bitter pill and go get a job, right?
Definitely.
And you're working the job, perhaps slightly disgruntled, but still doing a good job at the job because you're going to do a good job at anything. But what it sounds like to me that you got out of that was how bad do you want it? You found out that you still wanted this entrepreneurship really bad. What you could have done is worked at Electrolux and still be working there. And you could have just found that maybe, I'm an employee, which there's not, trust me, there's nothing against employees. We need people who love that security and that consistency of an employeeship. But we also need entrepreneurs. America needs entrepreneurs and people who pursue entrepreneurship. And you had to scratch that itch,
Yeah, definitely. It was something that I needed. It was it was stronger than something that I wanted in a lot of ways. And I was just willing to. It was just all I cared about at the time. It was just so important to me to not give up. I guess I just felt even though there were setbacks along the way that I could kind of keep going and eventually see a little bit of success at a time. And, and as you kind of have a little bit of a background in real estate, I mean, we tried all the different marketing strategies to find opportunities off market. So we did letters. I mean, we would drive on the weekends and I've probably driven every single street in all the core areas. And
so you had to learn the area, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing is how bad do you want it led to a lot of knowledge acquisition. So you're a lot smarter than if you would have went there and just found a property right off the bat. And you might've lost 20 grand on it instead of maybe coming out where you made 5 or 10 grand. You probably made some mistakes on the first one. Maybe I'm just throwing this out.
Yeah, definitely.
On the first one with your condo renovation that maybe you could have made 15,000 instead of, 10,
Oh, for sure.
So
yeah,
you
there's
got
so
to learn
many
a lesson and make
along
money
the way.
Those
Yeah,
are
definitely.
So how did you find your first deal? How did you find the first condo renovation?
Yeah, that first one was from a yellow letter. So we tried out so when I first started yellow letters, it was 2012. And I'll never forget, I didn't know, I bought a list online, 1,000 letters. It wasn't that popular at the time, but I read about it somewhere that it was a strategy. And I was looking for deals on the MLS and saw the numbers didn't work. So that first campaign of 1,000 letters, I'll never forget this. I got 100 calls. My phone was nonstop ringing for 48 hours. And I had
all right. So
no
tell
idea.
us I almost called it the ugly letter. So tell us about the yellow letter strategy.
Yeah. So what the yellow letter strategy is, basically I bought a list online of people that had high equity and just sent them a letter that said, "Hey, I'm interested in buying your property. Give me a call." And that was just a strategy that I read about. There's blogs, there's podcasts, there's ways to find all the information that you need. Nowadays, you probably would get, I don't even know, I haven't sent a letter in a long time, maybe less than a 1% response.
Yeah.
So to get 10% was like off the charts. So all these calls
it's
came
yellow
in.
though, right?
They're yellow, yeah. So
It's
they
on
look
yellow
like it's
paper,
handwritten. Exactly.
And it's printed with like handwritten script, right? Printed with handwritten. It's not handwritten. You didn't handwrite 1,000 of them, right?
No, I found it was a Yellow Letters complete company that we, outsourced all that to. It was like $1 a letter or something to send.
Did you, what was the envelope colored as well?
Yeah, it all looks like very handwritten. That was like the marketing thing back then.
Yeah. Do you, was the, I'm just like,
yeah.
All right. Was the actual envelope colored or was it white? Do you know that it went out in?
So there's all different types. Those that we did were white with like a hand where it looked handwritten. So it looked like, if you were to write your, family member a happy birthday card. So it was very much something that you would open. It didn't look like it was, a bill or a spam basically.
Yeah. And that's how it works. But I mean, it's like, that's what gets opened is the handwritten stuff. Nobody even opens the other stuff anymore,
Exactly.
But I love that. And then they open it up and it's got a yellow letter and essentially it just says, "Hey, listen, you've been identified as one of the properties that I love and would love to live in. My family's looking and please call me." And to get 100 calls is insane.
Yeah, it was insane at that time.
Like
I had no idea what to do when the people called me too, because it was the first time. So I was just like overwhelmed and but over time I was able to get a little bit better at it each time.
All right. So they called and then how, out of 100 calls, how did the condo end up being the one?
It just happened to be like the guy was looking for the right opportunity. He didn't really want to mess with kind of the simple renovation that was needed. I think he was a guy, he had a bunch of money. He lived on the lake and he was like, "Great, this guy wants to take my property off my hands. Perfect. We buy off market. They don't have to pay commissions. And, it's an easier transaction one-on-one." So there's pros to it as well. And then, that first deal, we just kind of jumped on it. And like you said, made a bunch of mistakes, but, luckily made a few bucks and kept on going from there.
So you renovated it and then sold it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Kind of like a simple carpet. It was probably like 2 months, but it should have taken a month kind of thing. It was pretty simple,
right.
But still took forever. Yeah.
So was it paint and floor or was it?
Yeah, it was like paint, flooring, and like redoing some cabinets, like really simple stuff. Yeah. It was like a $50,000 condo. We put 10, 15 grand in and sold for 80 or 90 or something like that. And at the end of the day, that's how it all shook out.
That's awesome. All right. So you had your first deal, you made 5 to 10 when it was all said and done. And then what'd you do?
We kind of just kept going from there. So over time, like that marketing plan and that way to find opportunities got diluted a little bit. And then we started doing, driving for dollars, which is essentially like kind of driving all the streets, looking for homes that needed work and then sending them letters. And then over time, we, learned how to call people. And now, like I mentioned, a lot of it is referral based, really. A lot of, the people that are putting in that work are kind of bringing us the opportunities because they know that we are that end buyer. But in the beginning, it was about the sweat equity and putting that time in. And then also people that bring us opportunities know that like my background is a little bit in that wholesaling world. So that helps. Like I get their world, and I understand my world, so I can kind of bridge the gap a little bit.
Well, and you're unemotional about it, right? You're a financial analyst. So you're like, yep, nope, yep, nope, and when they're like, "No, what do you mean no?" You're like, "Well, I did the math." It's really hard to argue with math. It really is. So
for sure,
the math doesn't work for us. Oh, this math does work for us. We're going to do this one. And that's what I love about math is, when you actually use it in real life, it can help make decisions,
For sure. Yeah. I'm definitely a big spreadsheet guy. Like, know what margins we're looking for and look at that pretty regularly.
So you did how did you get your second deal? Right. I mean, it's like, did you continue with the letter campaign for several times or, I'm kind of interested in this lead generation side of what you're talking about. So you've evolved.
Definitely.
Referrals. but
Yeah.
not everybody that listens to Referrals Podcast is there yet. They can start that, they can do all the things, but they may have to do other things in the beginning,
Yeah, for
things
sure.
like you did with the letters, right?
Yeah. So what we did was like, we would, through our like understanding and research, we'd find 10 different ways to find deals. So maybe it was letters that were high equity. Maybe it was letters that were code enforcement. So we'd figure out, processes and systems to pull that information online and send them letters. Over time, we figured out how to just kind of call people and get in touch with them and understand what we're looking for. But the key principle of it was getting the knowledge to understand like what to do. And I'm sure there's new techniques now that I don't even know about anymore. But get that knowledge, get that information, and then track it and keep kind of grinding until you find opportunities, and the things that work, double down on, and the things that don't work, put aside and find new things. So it's like, for us, we try 10 different types of strategies and have different numbers for every single different campaign. And I'd have a spreadsheet and I'd also make sure you're consistent also. So I had these campaigns where I had goals. I was going to send X number a week. And I had every week, I held myself accountable to be consistent and to send those letters out, and then to track how many calls and understand what we had to do. And then if deal flow is low, like you may have to spend more money or or do some different things. And then also, there's a lot, you can network. There's a lot of ways to find opportunities, but I think in real estate in particular, I can speak to find your niche and really, be the best at that niche. That's going to be the key. Being, sending people opportunities that are listed on the open market on what's called the MLS here. You're probably not going to get to that next step and be able to create a business around that because you haven't created any value. You haven't put in the sweat equity.
Yeah, that's so what, this is kind of the happiness episode, right?
Yeah.
So how does happiness, how does what you're doing make you happy, or does it?
Yeah. Well, I think from
happy,
a business,
right?
Thank you. I appreciate it. From a business standpoint, like I love running the company. I've always like really wanted to be like a teacher or coach. So I do really enjoy like the idea of winning, I want my employees to feel like this is a team sport. Like when Vista Homes wins, how does everybody win? So I do really enjoy that side of it. But then on the happiness side, I understood that like what makes me not happy is stress and anxiety. And that is a big piece of entrepreneurship. So for me, I've always been someone that just continues to reinvest. I understand myself. So I didn't go out when I made a few dollars and buy a fancy car and go to fancy dinners and fancy vacations. I said, like, I'm here today. How do I continue to get better? One thing in the real estate industry that has been super helpful for me is that you have to continue to create personal financial statements, probably once a quarter, twice a year. And I save all of them. So it's really cool for me to go back 2, 3, 4 years and just see that progress. So for me, understanding that progress, that gives me happiness as well. And then, at times when I was stressed, and I really started to learn as an entrepreneur that this is such a long game. Like you have to have patience. Nothing's going to happen overnight. When you think something's going to click, so there's going to be some other issue. But just try to stay grounded in terms of being patient and enjoying the process as much as possible. And that's kind of, in order for me to get to that next step with happiness, I need to get better at enjoying the process, better at even limiting the stress. And in real estate, the way I look at it too is like, there were days where if you have $1,000 issue, that would give me a lot of stress. Well, now I want it to be 10,000, 50,000. Like I want that number to keep rising where I don't feel that stress. It's like, yeah, it happens. Like this one worked out, this one didn't. You keep moving on. You hopefully don't make the same mistake twice. But so that's like just really important to me. And then, by doing all of that, creating the processes, systems, and striving toward that, I hope to create more time for myself, which, allows me to spend time with family and friends and do things like the Charlotte Entrepreneur Podcast and being on podcasts like this that I'm just happy doing. They're enjoyable. It's fun to talk to people like yourself and it's uplifting for sure.
Yeah, I love that. And it's just you're doing what you love. And the thing is, it's not just doing some things you like. What like mastery leads to happiness. That's kind of the thing that, it's not necessarily, people look at like what you do and like sometimes what I do and they're like, wow, it's so easy for you. Well, yeah, it wasn't. For many years, it wasn't easy. It became easy because I kept doing it, because I loved doing it, and it was fulfilling some need for me. And that's the thing that I like you said, be niche specific and become really, really good at that. And I think mastery does lead to happiness, especially if you're doing something that you like. But there's this big part of what you're talking about is reducing stress and anxiety. We need to fill our cup with the good stuff, but we need to protect our cup from the bad stuff. What is causing us stress? And in many cases, like you said, is financial security. And the big thing on that is that if people would just do a budget, they would feel better. The reason that many are stressed is because they just don't know. They don't know where they stand. They don't know, many people don't even know what their monthly nut is, as far as from a home or from personal or from business. Like, what is your monthly nut? What do you need to earn on a monthly basis to get by, and then, make sure that you're geared up to do 3 to 5 times that, hopefully every month, and go from there. So it's sure. One of those, I love that it's just like, do what you love to do, try to be in that element, but also eliminate all those things that aren't making you happy. The people, places, and things that are toxic and just negative. And then add the multipliers and the additions, the people who plus you, right?
Yeah, and I think there's a compound growth effect too. And I feel like I'm kind of just on the precipice of like that compound growth, but I'm really excited to see where it leads to. I think like maybe that's again the financial analyst nerd side, but it's like that stuff gets me going. Like I want to see this thing that they talk about, this compound growth and the compound effects of doing the right thing every day for a long period of time.
I love it. And here's the thing, right? We got a couple of math guys here talking, and hopefully people found it interesting. And I want to know, listeners of Referrals Podcast, email me at michael@referco.com or podcast@referco.com. Either one will end up at me. And let me know, like, did you like a couple of nerds and people geeking out on the math side? Because I want to know, how this episode went. The other thing I want to do is I want to bring you back next year around this same time.
That'd be awesome.
Right?
I'd love to come
and
back,
just give us your update. Because you hit home. Here's my quote, right? I say, there is no such thing as success or failure. There is only growth. There's only growth. And like, you will catch me smiling at our failures. And people are like, you guys just got, you just made a mistake. You just did this. Why are you happy? It's like growth. I know we can grow from this. I'm so excited because I think that should have been a part of our system. But if this wouldn't have happened, we never would have made it a part of the system. Like one time we had our presentation shut down, and we were thinking the hotel, the power was, we just didn't plug in the computer. We didn't attach the what? Well, guess what? New checklist item. Make sure you plug in the computer, right? And there is no success or failure, only growth. And like you said, how do you define success? It's, are you meeting your goals? Are you happy? Is it working for you? And what was a failure that you learned most from? You talked about going to Charlotte and not having the resources to make it work, but it actually turned into being a huge plus to work at Electrolux because you got to drive the city. And you also got to realize how bad do I want this? And the fact is you wanted entrepreneurship more than you did employeeship. And so you took the risk and you went on your own, and the rest is history. So I love this. This has been phenomenal. I think there's so many people who can relate to where you're at and where you're from and where you're going. And I've enjoyed the heck out of this. How do they reach out to you? How do they listen and learn on Charlotte Entrepreneurship Podcast and go from there?
Yeah, definitely. So come, find the Charlotte Entrepreneur Podcast. Like we mentioned, it's on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and anywhere you really find your podcasts. Feel free to reach out to me directly on social media if you have any maybe questions about getting started or want to be a part of the podcast. I'm happy to answer questions and help as well. And, my name Jason Javer, Javer. You could really find me on, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter as well. And I just hope that, we could kind of continue to spread this message. I think it's amazing platforms to be able to talk to people and to spread this message. And, I think in times past, it was harder to spread messages like this, but, nowadays we're able to hop on a podcast, hop on Zoom, and I'm passionate about, spreading that message really.
I love it. I open this with, are you happy? And I hope that everybody that's listening, I hope you're happy, because this has been a great episode for really like peeling the onion down to what really matters about business and what really matters as an individual to entrepreneurs, and I hope that I have a call to action for everybody who's listening to this. I don't care if you're in Belgium. Thank you, Belgium. Number 4, baby. And I don't care if you're in Seattle. I don't care if you're in Bahamas. I don't care if you're in Canada. Somebody in Charlotte. I want you to reach out to whoever that lives in Charlotte, North Carolina area, and I want you to recommend the Charlotte Entrepreneur Podcast to them. Let them know that this is coming. Let them know that they might want to listen to it. Let them know that they might want to be a guest on it. And the opportunities are truly endless. There's a lot of employees who want to get into entrepreneurship but don't know how. And this podcast is going to let them know how to be a great startup. And then there's entrepreneurs and networking people who are doing very well in Charlotte, but they want to do better. And this podcast is going to help them do that as well. So Jason, man, I so appreciate you being our guest on the Referrals Podcast. You delivered a lot of value today. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me.
Ladies and gentlemen, this has been another episode of Referrals Podcast. Join us next week. Oh my gosh, are you crazy? I'll tell you, you got to make it happen. Referralspodcast.com. That's right. It's like the most awesome referral library in the history of the world. And then also make sure you sign up for RMS21.com. That's Referral Mastery Summit 2021. We're doing it in the Hilton Scottsdale Resort and Villas in Scottsdale, Arizona. You're going to want to be there. Everybody who gets referrals and does repeat business with their customers and clientele are going to be in Scottsdale, Arizona next October. Make sure you get an early bird ticket now. I appreciate all of you. We will see you next time on the Referrals Podcast. Thank you.